Mike Pachelli here. Thanks for tuning in. For this lesson, I'll be talking about the Beatles' recording of I Need You that they did in February of 1965. I Need You was written between December 64 and early 65 by George Harrison, and it's your typical, verse, bridge song, but unusual because the verses are 14 measures long and the bridges are 9 measures long. It's the second George Harrison song the band released after 2 albums without any George Harrison songs, and George Martin said the reason being was that nobody liked anything that George had written. Well, George's current creativity was probably inspired by his habitual use of marijuana. And was the song about Pattie Boyd, or was it about Joey Heatherton, who George Harrison was having an affair with? Not much has been said by George, but he has commented, "If I get something going, then I'll tape it. I'll leave it for about 5 weeks, then I'll suddenly remember. Then I add a bit more to it, so it will probably take me about 3 months before I finish one song." Before recording the song, George and John worked on it at John Lennon's house in the early hours of the day when Ringo was to be married to Maureen Cox, which was February 11, 65. Then on February 15th, they're at EMI Studio 2, and it's the first day of recording for what will become the Help album. They used a relatively new procedure of recording the rhythm track first and then overdubbing the vocals later. And for the rhythm track, the lineup was George on acoustic guitar, Paul on bass, John on snare drum, Ringo tapping the back of an acoustic guitar, and they did this all on track 1. And track 2 had George Harrison's guide vocals. They determined that take 5 was the best. On February 16th, overdubs were done, and that was George doing his lead vocal with Paul singing some harmony, and which wiped out the scratch track. And then George and Paul double-tracked their lead vocals. Ringo overdubbed a cowbell, and then George, Paul, and John did the background vocals, the oohs and the ahs that appear occasionally. And George overdubbed that 12-string volume pedal part. And it's really out of time. It's actually the Beatles' first use of a volume pedal, and it's possibly where the volume pedal was controlled by John kneeling down on the studio floor while George Harrison played the guitar part. Because about that in 1987, George said, "There was a guy in Liverpool, Colin Manley, and he was in a band called the Remo 4. He had a volume pedal, and I think we tried that, but I could never coordinate it. So some of those, what we do is I played the part, and John would kneel down in front of me and turn my guitar's volume control." Now, did he mean volume pot or volume pedal? I'm not sure. It all sounds like an illusion to me, but we'll never know for sure. The song was mixed on February 18th, 1965. They never played the song live, and it was not even worthy to be mentioned in George's autobiography, I Me Mine. It was released on Parlophone on the 6th of August, 1965, and on August 13th, 1965, on the Help soundtrack in America. So that's the backstory. Let's get started. You may notice when you try to play along with songs on the Help album that your guitar sounds a little sharp. That's because we now tune to A 440 hertz. But back in 1965, some of the pianos that the Beatles probably tuned up to were tuned to either A 432 hertz or A 435 hertz. So that makes them sound a little flat. So even though they were tuned correctly, it sounds flat to where we are now at A440, because A440 was proposed in 1939, but it wasn't reestablished as norm until 1975. So we're tuned to A440. So luckily you'll have my sound to like to play along, which will make your A440 guitar sound in tune. George Harrison is playing a Ramirez nylon string acoustic on I Need You. This is a Garcia, made in 1970 in Spain, so it sounds pretty good. In order to play the song, you'll need these chords. You'll need an A add 9, an A suspended. You'll need a D. And let's see, you're going to need an F sharp minor, a C sharp minor, a B minor, And at the end of the second verse, going into the bridge, you'll need an A augmented. Now, you could also think of that chord as an F augmented or a C sharp augmented, because that's how an augmented chord moves, like all the same notes. I'm going to call it an A augmented because McCartney stays on an A when that chord is being played. But nevertheless, there's a lot of anticipation, and I suggest that you play the up beats on upstroke. Makes it a lot easier. So at the very beginning, he goes from A to A add 9 to A suspended to A, and very slowly he plays like this. He goes. So again, when you get those anticipations, the upbeats, strum on the upbeat. And during a verse, there's only one little difference between verse 1 and 2, in that in the seventh measure of the second verse, he stays on an A instead of an A suspended. So the very seventh measure of the first verse is, but the second time it's on A. Charts and tabs will make it much clearer, but I'll just play it for you. So to play a verse, let me do a verse for you with Ringo in time. Help me out, buddy. Sounds like he has a limp. So here's a verse. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thanks, buddy. Should have that checked. So again, the second verse is exactly the same, except when you get to the ending, the last measure, you'll play that A augmented. So going into a bridge, you play right, A augmented. Now to play a bridge, the chords are D to E, A augmented, D, E. Now then comes a B7. Now you'll notice when I get to the electric guitar part that the electric guitar goes from B to B minor to a E7, but George on the nylon, listen closely, just stays on that B7 to a regular E. And let me play you a bridge, sort of in time. Sounds like this: 3, 4. There's an extra measure in the bridge there, that ninth measure, which could or could not have been there, actually. Verse 3, very similar to the other verses. I'll just play it. Let me play this one even slower. Here's verse 3, nice and slow for you, so you can see all the syncopation, and again, play up on the syncopation. Verse 3 would be... You'll notice there's an A7 there in measure, 7/7 of a verse. Okay, again, charts and tabs make it clearer than I could say it or play it. Bridge 2, let's help me out again, Ringo. How's your limp? That's weird. 1, 2, 3, 4. You notice the accents on that B7 on beat 1 and beat 3, very prominent, And then there's little 16-note pickup things on the E. Again, anytime you anticipate, which I mean, comes before the beat, play it on the upbeat. So you play, like, think 1 E and And then the last verse, verse 4, simply. You notice on that F sharp minor and the D that he anticipates on the and of 4 going into them. Like, that's where the accent is. And finishes off with. Again, charts and tabs will make it so much clearer than I can say it or play it, but that's George's acoustic part on I Need You. George Harrison's playing his Rickenbacker 360-12 on I Need You. This is a Harley Benton plugged straight into a 1964 AC30 with the top boost cranked. He plays with a volume pedal. Somebody's manipulating it. And if you don't know, a volume pedal is just a potentiometer, like a kind of like a wah-wah pedal, but a potentiometer, a volume potentiometer. And when it's up and you play, you get nothing. Press the pedal down, you get a chord. So that's what's going on. So he plays simple chords. He uses an A chord here, voice like this. 2 different A add 9s. One here, and an A add 9 up here. And he goes between those 2. He also uses an A suspended to an A. Then at the second part of, and there's an A7 too. And then the last part of the verse, an F sharp minor to C sharp minor, F sharp minor voiced like an A6 really, and a B minor, and then you're also going to need an A augmented, which he plays up here, sliding into the D. So at the very beginning of the song, you play from A to A add 9, and it's on beat 1 and 2. So it's 3, 4. That's that. Now during the verses, first time he plays the second version of A9, so it's ba da 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 do 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 do, ba da 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 do 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 to A7. Now on these chords, on the F sharp minor, whoever's working the volume pedal is kind of attempting to do like half notes. So you play a chord, and it's actually, you first hear it on the end of 1 instead of 1. Second verse you hear it on beat 1. So it's on the end of 1, but you hear 1. Like that. So it's like if you're pressing, you're thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, boom, ding, ding, dum, dum. So I'm getting that. Right. And the second verse is exactly the same, except going into the bridge, like I said, he goes from A augmented into kind of a little D on the end of 4. He goes, and then E on beat 3 to an A chord, A augmented on beat 3, E chord. And now when George Harrison is just on the acoustic guitar holding a B7, he plays on the electric, he plays a B up here, triad, to a B minor triad, to an E7, to an E. So again, it sounds like. And then on verse 3, on the and of 3, you hear him play almost like an A suspended 6 on the end of 3. So on verse 3, 1, 2, 3. Dun, dun, ba, do. Do, ba, do, 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 do. The A7. Back to the half note feel of the F sharp minor. And then turn the page here. Back to alright. Bridge 2. He plays a D and an F sharp on the 3rd beat. 1, 2. Doesn't play on the E to the A. 1, 2, 3. See a little move from A augmented up to a D and an F sharp of a D chord. To an E. Once again, he plays the B, B minor, E. And now this time just a E triad. And then a low E. Verse 4. Ba ba doo 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 ba doo doo. He's doing the second version of A add 9. Ba da doo 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 doo. A7. These are definitely played closer to the downbeat now, this part. And then finishes off. F sharp minor. A regular D. And then the very ending is and I guess you could get those A add 9s strummed up would probably sound more like the record. So, and they happen on the end of 2 and the end of 3. So it's charts and tabs at MikePachelli.com will make it way more clear than I could say it or play it, but that's George's 12th string part on I Need You. I put it together in a sound alike so you can see how both guitar parts fit together, so please have a look at this.
You don't realize how much I need you. Love you all the time and never leave you. Please come on back to me. I'm lonely as can be. I need you. Said you had a thing or two to tell me. How was I to know you would upset me? I didn't realize as I looked in your eyes. You told me, oh yes, you told me, you don't want my loving anymore. That's when it hurt me. I'm feeling like this, I just can't go on anymore. Please remember how I feel about you. I could never really live without you. So come on back and see just what you mean to me. I need you. But when you told me you don't want my loving anymore, that's when it hurt me. I'm feeling like this, I just can't go on anymore. Please remember how I feel about you. I could never really live without you. So come on back and see just what you mean to me. I need you. I need you. I need you.
Well, now you've had a bird's eye view of how both of those guitar parts fit together. I suggest you download the charts and tabs at MikePachelli.com. Learn both parts, play along with my sound alike, and you'll get it just like the Beatles. And I really appreciate your consideration in supporting my work that way. So have fun playing this great old song, and until next time, I'm Mike Pachelli. Thanks for hanging out with me.